I know it's a new day. I know we're not used to being here on a Tuesday, but Josh, we are back from the supporters section. Nick McVicker, Josh Palermo with you. And, dude, it's been kind of a crazy week in Canadian footy. We also have a big game coming up tomorrow when it comes to Canadian soccer, a big camp coming up. There's just a lot going on. Let's get right into it because I don't want to waste too much time because we got a lot to talk about. Let's just jump right into the MLS and okay, let's start with the hometown team. Might as well because we're both from Toronto. We might as well start with the team that we know the best. TFC, how do we put this? TFC's not doing very well right now. 2 straight losses.
To put it lightly.
2 straight losses this past week. First one coming to the hands of the Columbus Crew. That one, you know what? It's the Crew. They're kind of rolling right now. You don't hate it. You don't love it because it's technically one of our rivals, but I get it, at least. They're rolling. They're one of the best teams in the league. I mean, They're sitting third, tied for second in the Eastern Conference, and third
Defending
overall.
MLS Cup champs.
Defending Cup champs, defending Leagues Cup champs. Don't forget that,
It's
too.
True. They've been cooking. They've been on an
And
absolute
they're
roll.
third most points in the league. I get it. I can't hate on the loss, but at the same time, you don't love it. And then they follow that up with a 2-0 loss to Colorado, who, again, are third place in the West, so not a bad team to lose to, and probably more of a reason in that game for a loss because, you know, they were putting half a squad out.
Yeah.
But still, you're having you're trying to secure a playoff spot right now. 2 straight losses is not the way to help secure that playoff spot. I know Canadian Championship, I know it's there. I know that it's going to be a talking point, but we got to be honest about this because this is not the way you need to be going about doing pretty much anything right now. And TFC is finding ways to lose in a time that they can't find ways to lose, if that makes sense. Right? Am I wrong in that statement?
I couldn't disagree more. I think the frustrating thing about, particularly
Couldn't
for
disagree
me,
more? You don't agree at all?
Oh, sorry, I couldn't agree more. Sorry.
I was gonna say.
Have mercy. Sorry, I couldn't disagree that they should lose every game. No, we're not tanking. Sorry, no. Sorry, I couldn't agree more because, and in particular for me, the Columbus Crew match was a very frustrating one because I felt like we hung in there for the first 45, and we really played well. Now I know Cujo Hernandez did come off the bench, like he didn't start the game, so he was a difference maker for them. No questions there. But it's just we felt like we were in that match, and it was something that was giving me a lot of confidence because you're looking at the standings, you're looking at can we build some momentum heading into the playoffs, and then Oso goes down injured. They bring Hernandez off the bench, score quite quickly, and we just collapse. And Insigne goes off in the 60th minute, and we get some interesting words from John Herdman post match there, and then he tries out a little bit of a new formation against Colorado in the 3-5-2 to try and kickstart the offense, the non-existent offense. I really don't know what the solution is here because that was sort of my thought. I was like, well, how can we shake things up, right? Especially because Insigne was not being included into the lineup, and John Herdman made sure to call him out in his press conference post-match saying we need guys like Lorenzo Insigne to step up. You know what I mean? Like you're making $15 million a season. You got to be able to play 90 minutes. There's no two questions asked about that. And so that kind of brings me to the main thing that I want to talk about, the thing that's been really fired me up.
He's got a question and he's going to get fired up. This is great, folks.
I got agita for our Italian Canadian fans out there, okay? Because at this point, after 2 seasons, right, after almost a full 3 seasons.
2 full seasons and a half.
Exactly. As we near the end of this MLS season.
But he also missed half of that first year. Don't forget
It's true. It's like, anyhow. Is the Lorenzo Insigne experiment officially a failure?
Do you want me to answer that first?
I have all of my thoughts, but I would like you to start, Nick.
You want me to start?
Yes.
The Lorenzo Insigne experiment is not a failure, but it also did not live up to the expectations that were placed upon it. Because I do think when he was at his best here, he performed very well, and the team around him was fueled by his play. The problem was it just wasn't consistent enough to deem him worthy of the salary that he was making, because he's one of the top 2 players in salary for this season, or he's the top player or something like that, something along those lines. He's
I
one of the
think
top two for sure, but I can't
he's
remember.
number 2 under Messi, I believe.
Well, don't forget, most of Messi's contract isn't actually a average salary.
Yes.
It's mostly Apple. Right? So you have to remember that. So the actual average salary per year paid by the club, I think Insigne might have the most. Regardless, that is totally off what we're trying to talk about here. When he was playing at his peak, and we saw it, we know that there have been flashes. There was like a 5-game stretch at the end of last season where he was the best player in the league. And even at the beginning of this season, it looked like him and Bernardeschi were flying, right? When he was playing at his potential, this club rallied around him and had success. But the expectations were so much higher that you can't say it was a failure, but you can say it didn't live up to the expectation.
I think that's fair. I think that is a reasonable response.
Did I change your response, or are you going to go full emotion on me?
I've been gassed up about this.
I know you have. That's why I was surprised you let me.
Surprised
you let me go.
I know. I didn't think about this all the way through because really I should have had your calming voice after.
Well, I try to be as unbiased as humanly possible as the host of the show. I let you be the more fan experience, and which is what we need because I'm so far removed from that I can't do it anymore.
Who can be the voice?
The voice of the
maybe
people.
It's me.
Voice of the people.
Voice of some people, some angry people. Listen, okay? The moral of the story is if you're making $15 million a year, if you are being signed, and it's the most expensive deal when you come to the league, which was double Zlatan Ibrahimovic's when he made that and broke history there.
Yep.
And you're going to, in 60 appearances, only put up 18 goals and 12 assists. I don't think that's enough. I'm a Saudi.
I
don't know what else I'm supposed to say. Well, first of all, everything about this, from every aspect, and I cannot be the only one to be thinking this. When I first read how Bill Manning went ahead with his thought process on reaching out to Lorenzo Insigne, okay? The way he approached this, he literally said, I actually went to the transfer market website and looked at the Italian national team on what players were coming out of contract, and Lorenzo was one of the few players that was coming out of contract.
Which is right.
So, sure, that's great. I can go on transfer market. You can go on transfer market. That's how I sit here and watch soccer. I go on transfer market. Oh, this is how I think I can make my team better. You do not bring in a DP like Lorenzo Insigne and think that he's going to be the guy to get. He brought butts in seats, but you can't build a team around him. That's not how this works.
But
that's not how football works.
I'll agree with you that it didn't work out that way, and that was the expectation. That's what I was saying. But we can also agree that when he was playing, the team was better. He helped the team when he was playing at his top. When him and Bernardeschi were firing, that team was better over the last 2.5 years.
There were flashes of that. The
Absolutely.
problem is
flashes, 100% flashes.
He, to me, is not enough of a difference maker type of player.
Okay. He's
a winger who can add a lot to an attack, and he's got a wonderful shot that he does with the outside of the box curler. He got some great feet. But what he had at Napoli were some great teams. Just truly, he had Sadi as a coach, he had Spalletti as a coach, and there were good footballing systems. What Bob Bradley was doing, there was no system. John Herdman put a Band-Aid on what was going on. I think that he came in, he reinvigorated spirits, he got something going. I think at the heart of it, Lorenzo Insigne does not want to be in Toronto. And that is what upsets me most as an Italian Canadian. And this is where a lot of my gripe starts, because not only does Herdman make the comments that he makes post-match, and I watched the performance, I watched him walk off the field like he didn't give two poops about what was going on. and it really frustrated me, because then I'm seeing, I think it was Il Corriere della Sera, is saying, they do an interview with him that gets released, and he goes, yeah, I miss Napoli, and I want to go back to Europe one day, and Canada's nice. Well, my family's happy. I don't speak English. I didn't learn it as a child, so I can't. That upset me, because it didn't make me.
He didn't learn English, or that he doesn't want to be here?
his attitude that he doesn't want to be here anymore, the attitude that he wants to go back to Europe, the attitude that said he didn't come with, I don't know what he expected when he came to Canada, because there were a bunch of Italian Canadians waiting here with love and excitement in their hearts because he had just won the Euros for their country.
Yep.
And from the get-go, I felt like that love wasn't reciprocated, because when there are kids standing outside BMO Field post-match to get your autograph and you're driving out in a black SUV, not ready to meet people yet, that wasn't welcoming, because that's what I saw when he first came here. Now, albeit, eventually, he did integrate himself more. He was coming out of the tunnel like everybody else at the end of post-match. But Bernadeschi, for me, has always done a greater job of being engaged with the community here in Toronto, and he was excited about that. And I think, so from all aspects, from the performances that we're seeing on the field, which we could talk about, which lots of people have talked about, but I'm just talking about from the whole project standpoint. When Bill Manning's whole thing, thank God he's gone now, was that he's going to rally people. The Italian Canadians are going to be able to get behind him. Sure, I think that a lot of people could have done that, and they want to do that, and they did do that when he first got here, but that love wasn't reciprocated, because he hasn't shown that he wanted to be here in the body language and in the attitude, because when Sebastian Giovinco was here, he was a Torontonian.
Yeah.
Like in every true sense of the word. So how do you make a move like that? How do you move your whole family here and you don't want to enjoy the culture that exists? I think, and that's what upsets me the most. It feels like the whole narrative coming from him is, well, it's not Italy. It couldn't be. It's not. Football's different. The environment's different. And I want to go back. And here's Bernadeschi said the same thing.
Yep.
And that could have happened in January. But he has gone out there on the pitch, and he's given it 110% every game. His work rate is incredible. There were questions last year.
He was going through some injuries. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But yes, this year he has gone out and played his butt off.
No.
And you mentioned Giovinco, which, by the way, was a very different, let's be honest, it's a very different situation.
No.
From when Insigne came in, because Insigne, as you said, was just on the national team just prior, won the Euro Cup, almost said World Cup, and he still was in his prime. Giovinco, when he came, a lot of people thought he was past his prime. When he arrived, like, I'm talking just past. I'm not saying he was like well past, but he was just past his prime. So people had issues with. They're like, oh, well, how much can we expect from someone who's on the decline a little bit? And then he balled out, right? Yeah. It was a different situation, and we can agree on that, right?
No, 100%. He's a different caliber of player that translated to this league very well, which was fantastic, and I was very happy to see. I think the thing is with Lorenzo Insigne, at 30 years old, he had wonderful output with the Italian national team, but it never came to fruition here, and it couldn't come to fruition here. And the thing is yes, so those are the main facts, right? But at the same time, it can't be ignored that this whole deal was looked at very similarly to the Sebastian Giovinco deal. Those deals, in my head, are linked because the whole sort of narrative from Bill Manning was, okay, well, we reached out also to Giovinco's agent, who got in contact with Lorenzo's agent, and that's how we got brought over here. Yep. And Giovinco was in conversation with Insigne, talking to him about, you got to understand, your spot in the Italian national team is going to be in question, this, that, and the other thing. So you're right. They're different players, but their stories feel very linked to me, and that's why the natural comparison is drawn, because I think the expectation was that he was going to be the next Giovinco.
Absolutely. I agree with you. That's why everything is drawn that way. We see it that way. But I think it also needs to be stated that that's not the case, because when Giovinco got here, there was that standard wasn't the same for when Insigne got here. Everyone expected more from Insigne.
Yeah.
His arrival was more akin to the bloody big deal when they brought in Jermaine Defoe and 100%. Michael Bradley and those guys. That is more what Insigne and Bernadeschi signing was like. Giovinco was kind of like, hey, we need a striker. This guy's been pretty good in the past. He might be on the decline, but let's see how much we can get out of him. And he exceeded all expectations. And that's fine. Yeah. Right? And maybe built up the expectations for what Insigne and Bernadeschi ended up having to do. Right? It could be that. And that's totally fair. I would agree with that for the most part. And we talk about expectations and meeting them. Well, why don't we look back? You talked about we're talking about Insigne potentially being a disappointment for what the expectations were. Well, the bloody big deal was a damn disappointment for a lot of fans too.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
But if we look at the stats, if you look at the stats for one Jermaine Defoe, he played 21 games for TFC. How many goal contributions do you think he had in 21 games?
That's a wonderful question. We'll take a random guess here. We'll say 12.
He had 12 goals.
Oh.
He had 15 goal contributions across 21 matches.
Yeah.
That's almost 75%.
Yeah.
Of your matches, you are contributing a goal. And we all saw that as a failure. Now, that was more because he didn't fit, but we all saw that as a failure. Hello, kitty.
always one of them's got.
So you take that and you compare it to what Insigne did, and you had the stat earlier. I can't remember what's the goal number for games played.
So in 60 total appearances over this period of time that spanned 3 years, he's had 18 goals and 12 assists.
So he's got 30 goal contributions in 60 games.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So he's roughly a half point a game, whether it's a goal or an assist. If we're talking hockey terms, I guess, technically, because that's not how we talk about it in soccer, but you know what I'm talking about.
It happens.
So that should be considered more of a failure if we're talking strictly contributions on the field. But I would say that Insigne had higher highs than Defoe ever did at TFC.
Yeah, I mean, he scored some brilliant goals, and I think immediately back to the goal that he scored at the beginning of this season against the New England Revolution away. He scored bangers, and there's no two ways about that. But that's not enough for me to say, we're gonna. Nathan Saliba was scoring bangers for CF Montreal, and he's not getting paid $15 million a year.
Right, I agree. I'm not saying that it's been a overwhelming success, but it's also hard to say that it was a complete failure. Yeah. Right, and that's what a lot of people are trying to do, and I just can't see it that way because he did bring something to a squad that let's be completely honest here, man. Before Bernardeschi and Insigne got here, this squad was a mess.
No, I honest to God, I think that they would have been in a better position had these two investments not happened because they.
Let's take Insigne out. You think they still would be better without Bernardeschi?
What's interesting to me is I feel like those two deals are linked again.
They are. They're 100% linked. I'm not arguing that. I'm not arguing that they're linked.
No, I know. Sorry. I guess the point that I'm trying to then make is, can you fully remove Bernardeschi from the situation? We're doing it as a hypothetical, so we'll say yes.
Well, you kind of can just because of the injuries. Yeah.
So
when one was hurt, the other one wasn't. When the other one got hurt, the other one came back.
There you go.
They've barely played together over the 3 years.
This is true. There's not been overlap whatsoever. Yeah, I think if you take Bernardeschi out as well, 100%. I think that they come at this with a new game plan for how they were going to build out this project because what are the two of them doing here? Keeping us in 8th place. That's wonderful. We might not even still be in the playoffs. So I think that had there never been these excess expectations, these increased expectations, bringing these two players over, and we had to just said, you know what? We're going to build from the bottom. We're not going to try to bring in the DPs immediately. We're going to try to progressively put a good squad together. I think if that had been the game plan in 2021, TFC would be in a better spot than they are right now.
I'm struggling with that. And the reason that I'm struggling with that is that I think Bernardeschi has actually been a success here this season, 100%. Yeah. And prior to about halfway through last season, he was playing fantastic. He started off the year really, really well last year. So to say that we would be in a better spot without him is a very, very difficult, or I shouldn't say we, I should say TFC would be in a better spot without him is very difficult for me. He's got 14 goal contributions in 27 games this season in the MLS for TFC. So let's say we take his 14 goal contributions, say those goals never happened, right?
No.
This club is at 24 goals on the season. They're already one of the worst scoring clubs in the league. And yes, some of those would have come back. So let's say instead of we taking 14 out, let's say we take 7 out, they would be the second worst goal scoring team in the league, trailing only Nashville.
Yeah.
they would not be in a playoff spot. And they would probably be bottom 3 or 4 in the East.
But the issue is, and like that, I see what you're saying. I can't, the statistics in that respect.
Because they don't have anyone to take that spot. We've seen it.
But,
when he's not on the field,
but,
they are not good enough.
But it's all to me about the fact that it's being built around one thing, right?
Right.
Like every single aspect of it is intertwined, and so because this decision was made, it has that impact. So if from the get-go, the mantra isn't let's bring in the Italians, let's bring in these DPs, I think you're in a different situation because you then have money that you can spend in different ways. You can develop talent in different ways. Because I don't think that our wingers should not be the main people providing the goals. Because that's what Toronto FC's biggest issue is. That's what we've seen in the last 2 matches. Whether it wasn't Diamande, it wasn't CJ Sapong back when.
Yep.
And now it's not Prince Owusu, and it's definitely not DeAndre Kerr. I don't know how many times I got to say that guy's not a 9. He's not. He's just not that target person in the center of the box that we need.
Owusu's the closest we've had over the last 2 years.
Yes, it's true. But
closest.
Even still, none of it's coming together. So I think all in all, the Insigne experiment, it did not pan out. As a result, other pieces were brought in that I also think served as a deterrent to the potential of creating a new project that who knows where that would have gone. Those are too many hypotheticals to go based off of.
Right.
But I don't think it's easy enough to say, well, you're just taking what you lose, all that. I would have loved to see Schaff. I'm so upset that Jacob Schaffelberg was given away for next to nothing.
Okay, but this was you're kind of building into what my point is, though. If they bring Bernardeschi in, he takes that right wing spot, right? You're not bringing in Insigne on the 15 mil.
Okay.
Right? We're just bringing Bernardeschi in.
Yeah, then that's...
Right? And he becomes your talisman. He becomes the guy that you build around along with Oso. Right? Because at the time, Oso was still, and still is.
He still is. He's still
is
the guy
guy
right now.
He still is the guy. Those are your two that you build around.
Yeah.
For a lot cheaper than what you're building around with Insigne and Bernardeschi.
That would 100%. If
then you build around it smartly. They didn't.
Yeah.
I will give you the credit. It does not work with both of them, and the way they built this squad. 100%. It has not worked. Herdman is trying to. I want to say what I want to say, but I can't say it. I'm gonna change my thought. Herdman is doing his best to try to cover up flaws in a system. Now, the club has not done a great job of maintaining any talent that they have brought through the system as well. Mm-hmm. Not to mention they don't do a great job of promoting talent in their own system. And that's a different conversation we're going to have in the
that could be a whole
offseason.
episode.
We will do a whole offseason episode about that compared to Montreal and Vancouver, and we're going to have some fun with that. They don't do enough anyway. So my point being that you needed to bring somebody in 3 years ago to be the guy. They brought 2 guys in. One of them didn't work out very well. I think Bernardeschi has. I think Bernardeschi has taken to the MLS, has taken to Toronto, and he was the guy that they should have built around. And they should have left it at that and left Insigne out of it. Or at least moved on from him after last year. I think that would have been the right thing and reallocated the money and rethought about how they wanted to go about things. Because you're right. The striker is an issue. I think the back line is still an issue. I'm not totally convinced that that's been figured out yet. I think it's better than it was at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
But it's not figured out yet. And I think they need another winger to go along with Bernardeschi on the right. They need a real winger on the left. As much as Larea has done a great job kind of filling in that role over the last few weeks, few months, it's not his natural position, and I don't think it's bringing the best out of him. And him being as a true wing back as opposed to winger would also help the defense again, which also brings, everything kind of falls into the right place when you play players in the right spots. So
100%.
All in all, I think I do think that the expectations haven't been met by Insigne. Is it a complete failure? No, but is it time to move on? Absolutely. I think that's the question we should be asking right now. Is it time to move on? And the answer, in my opinion, is yes. And I'm assuming it's the same with you.
My only tough thing that I'm dealing with right now is how do you get what do you do? What do you do with Lorenzo Insigne? Because he's got another 2 years on his deal, and it's a massive contract.
You get someone. You get someone to take it.
Who for me? I don't know. I would hope so. But I couldn't. I really don't see. This is my biggest concern.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll wrap up with this: is that I agree in that you should move on from him. But the issue that I think we have is nobody's going to want him.
No.
So then it moves to Bernadeschi has a better shot of going somewhere else, and he wants to go back to Europe. And it almost happened in January, and I could almost see in a world in which he moves on for the cash injection that the club would get to a mid-tier Serie A side. I think that's possible. So then, where do we go from there? That's the big concern. I think Herdman really needs to take more time to figure out what the hell it is he is trying to do. Because what he did at the beginning of the season worked well for a period of time, and everything after that has been a debacle. Yes, I know that there have been calls to the national team. There have been injuries that have hurt this squad. The backline's really suffer right now because of those injuries. But what are we doing? What are we doing? Like that, I'm excited for the offseason combos that we're going to have.
Yeah, we're going to have some fun ones, for sure. I don't know if moving on from Bernadeschi is the best, and we'll talk about that in the offseason.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave it at that. But I digress. From a team that's not doing so well to a team that actually is doing pretty well lately, Montreal has are they kind of finding form? I mean, points in their last 3, 2 wins and a draw. This past week, a 2-2 draw at New England, followed by a 2-0 win at Chicago. Now, let's kind of pump the tires a little bit because New England is dead last in the East and second last in all of MLS. And Chicago is second last in the East and third last in all of MLS. Are they finding form or just playing bad teams? Because it could be a combination of both, Josh. But in your opinion, are they actually finding form or are they playing bad teams?
I think that they're slowly building something that is a cohesive unit, and I think that they are doing that. I think so. I think that you get confidence. I understand that they're bad teams. They're just bad teams. But you gain confidence from these matches as you head into the end of the season, and I think it gives you the opportunity to be reinvigorated and begin a playoff push. Because those are that's some low hanging fruit for the squad to grab to be able to hopefully. And that's what they did. I would have liked to have seen them grab a win against New England, but the way that they were able to claw back in that victory and the 2 freaking goals. Are you kidding me? Like, I think the addition of, I don't want to mess up his first name, so give me a sec. Tom Pierce, I believe it is, right? Or let me just see. Sorry, I want to double check here.
For Montreal?
Yeah, Tom Pierce. Yeah, so you bring in Tom Pierce, and his first, which I think was a huge sign for this club. Did you see the banger that he scored, that free kick?
I'll be honest, no, I did not.
That is okay. It was absolutely incredible. So he gets brought in from England, right? And he is immediately thrusted into the League's Cup.
Yep.
And now he's actually getting an opportunity to play more in the regular season. His first regular season match was that 5-0 loss to New England. New England's been a bogey team for CF Montreal. So I think you take this crazy comeback draw as almost a win because of the talent that we saw and the skill we saw, because they played really well as a unit to claw back in this. You had a banger from Pierce. You had a banger from Nathan Saliba, who's really, really, since he has come off international duty, he has been on fire. He's been rolling. I think that things are happening at the right time. It's nothing incredible. You know what I mean? You can't sit here and say they're going to go on a crazy run. I think they're going to win the MLS Cup now. That's not what I'm saying. I think that slowly they are figuring out the pieces that they need, and the guys are getting the opportunity to gel more as a team. Things are making sense, and I think that there's a chance. They got San Jose coming up on the 28th. Then they got Atlanta United, Charlotte, and NY City FC. I think that, I'm excited for the Atlanta United match. I don't know, Nick. What are all your thoughts, knowing that is what is upcoming with my
Sorry. Read the teams that they have left, please.
San Jose,
dead last in the MLS.
Atlanta United,
1 point behind them.
Charlotte,
sitting in 6th in the East. Okay.
And then New York City FC,
tied for 6th in the East. So There's 2 very winnable games in that.
Yeah.
The first 2. And then depending on how Charlotte and New York City are doing, you could potentially steal a third one there. They're 2 points out of a playoff spot behind Philly and 2 points behind TFC with a game in hand. I could see them getting in.
I think
Is that a good thing? Maybe. It's tough to say because I think whoever ends up winning that 8-9 game is just going to get the living tar beat out of them by
you might
Miami.
as well go walk the plank. Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, it's almost like this is going to sound stupid because I know this is never going to happen, and nor would I want it to ever happen. But hear me out on this. If you're in that 8-9 game, do you want to lose that game? Because like you get into the playoff, you get the extra money for making the playoffs. You know what I mean? As a club, you get that one game of playoff experience, but then you don't have to get it embarrassed by Miami.
That's I
Right.
think
I said all these players are professionals. They're going to play their hearts out, and I would never want anybody not to want to win. I want to make that very clear. That's not what I'm trying to say, but like. Mentally, is it almost better to lose that game and not have to get the highs of winning a play-in game and then have to face Miami and get your doors blown off?
This is one of the most exciting hypotheticals I've ever been asked because I also my girlfriend and I got the email from TFC about putting that deposit down for the season ticket holders for getting the playoff tickets for the playoff games. And I was like, well, what's this going to look like? TFC would only at best get 2 home games. So,
2.
Yeah, because it would be if the playoffs ended today. If the playoffs ended
today. If playoffs ended today.
That's where I was basing it off.
Okay, I was gonna say
so
like,
this is why
there's not even a
point.
guarantee they host the first game.
This is true. It's true. It's true. That's just it. I said at best.
At best, yes.
And so the reason I bring that point up is because then it leads me to this next thought, which is because what I was fantasizing about was I kind of want to see Toronto FC and CF Montreal face off in that wild card game.
It would be great just for the sake of being a rivalry game. Like MLS would eat it up, and I'm sure that if there was a scripting thing, like everyone jokes about the NFL, that's what they want. They don't want Philly to be in there.
No.
They'd much rather the rivalry.
Yes, I want to see it a hard-fought match that Montreal deserves to win, but somehow TFC squeezes by, and then we just get slapped by Inter Miami.
Yeah,
that's what I want. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, it's rough. Because the other thing is that those 2 teams, Montreal and Toronto, are like 2 of the worst defensive teams in the league. Montreal's dead last in goals against in the East, tied with DC United, and TFC is 4th last.
Yeah.
They give up so many goals. Neither team scores a lot either.
Oh, it would be fun. It would be a real fun matchup. I think that'd be a great game. It'd just be a fun game to watch, and then you go see TFC get clobbered by Inter Miami, and then it'd be a good ball on the season.
I'll agree with you that Montreal, they're kind of finding something that's working. They're very young, but the thing that my only issue with this is that we said the same thing about them at the end of last year. Yeah. They're very young. They're finding their footing. Everything's kind of going well. And then they sold off a bunch of pieces. And they even did it this year in the middle of the season when they weren't playing well. I feel like that's just their MO, is that they figure things out with the squad that they have and they start to gel and everything gets going, and then they sell off the young guys again. It's like, well, you kind of defeated the whole purpose of this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's tough.
Hopefully they learn from their mistakes. I think last thing I want to say.
Yeah,
I'm very excited about Caden Clark. He's a young guy that balled out against Chicago, and I think they're going to learn from their mistakes.
Fair. Quickly, we'll just jump over to the Whitecaps because there's not a whole lot to say about them this week. They're in a playoff spot, not like super comfortably, but they're in a playoff spot. They dropped points this week because, well, they were kind of focused on something else. But they picked up a draw against Houston, lost 4-2 to LA. Is there any real reason for concern, or is the goal is the game tomorrow night in the Canadian Champ?
No, 100, the goal is just the Canadian champ.
Yeah.
Like the Houston match, I think just quickly was I was I think you're just gonna be really upset that like that you. So the first goal that Houston scored, they sort of picked apart Vancouver, but then it was offside, and they played phenomenally defensively. So I think that's sort of what they have to hang their hats on. With that was the exciting point, and I think you're bummed out that it's a draw because they could have gotten more. It's just an unfortunate penalty that happens. But yeah, there's nothing too big of a scare. I honestly was just from a defensive side of things. I was just like they played really well. They were very very tight, and that was nice to see.
Yep.
And then LA Galaxy.
They didn't care about that game. They were more focused on Wednesday.
No, I need more Vanni Sartini tarps off rolling around.
More Vanni Sartini. Well, we'll get to that, but first we're gonna check in on our CPL because that's a fun league to talk about. So let's get right to it. And we got two teams that have clinched playoff spots. Forge and Atletico both are in, despite what maybe social media might have told you.
That was brilliant.
That was awful for the league because everyone in the league offices was freaking out.
100%.
But yeah, Forge is through, Atletico's through. Forge just doing Forge things. They're now 5 points clear of Atletico. I think there's 4 games left because it's 28 games. Yeah. Every team plays 28. So 4 games left, 5 points clear. They've pretty much, I think they need like 2 wins out of their last 4 or something like that to secure the championship, the regular season championship. So they're well on their way. Atletico also through the super team does it. They figure it out. Not a whole lot to say about these two teams, in my opinion, Josh. Is there something you want to add? And let me know which team you want to talk about.
Forge did Forge things. They proved that that match against Halifax was just an anomaly. They got rid of the ghost of the road woes.
The road woes.
Yeah, they annihilated Vancouver, just tore them apart. It was crazy. Great game for them. But Atletico Ottawa, I don't know. It was a very interesting matchup against Pacific.
Well, a team that's battling for the bottom of the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different.
Yeah, 100%. So no, that's not too much there.
Speaking of teams that are battling for playoffs, let's jump over to Cavs because they've really kind of turned it on over the last little bit. I know if you look back, they only have 2 wins out of their last 5. But they also have 2 draws in that time. And they're playing better football right now. Like they've found their system, and injuries have really, really done them for most of this season. But despite that, they are 1 point from clinching a playoff spot, which is crazy. It's crazy.
With gas.
They're getting hotter at the right time.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's going to help them moving forward. We'll get to York, who's going kind of in the opposite direction next. But I want to talk about the Cavs first because you highlighted in our group chat. We go back and forth all week to figure out what the heck we're talking about every week. And you highlighted 2 guys, and I want to let you start with Ali Musi, who has been a revelation for this team over the last 2 years. We know how good he is. What has kind of stood out to you about him over the last little bit here?
He's healthy. That was the biggest thing. And that's what it's just as simple as that. That's what this squad was missing for such a long period of time. And he just needed to, even still, I'd say he just needed to get better things. His first game back in August, he netted 2, right? And he's a key piece for this Cavalry side. Without him, Cavalry is not as good of a team whatsoever. He's a dynamic player. What he does on the right side of the pitch with his ability to link up with other guys, with his ability to score, he's just an absolute force. Like he gave York so much freaking havoc, and we know he's a good player, right? He was just that. Like Cavs have had, I think, a tough year with just not getting the results early on in the season. It's been a grind, but he's their difference maker, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely, and I don't think there's really an argument to be had when it comes to that. And you add in a guy like Sergio Camargo, right? Who, I mean, we've both had conversations with Serge personally. He's a great guy. He truly is one of the guys that this league needs to build around as like a face of the league from a personality perspective. I I think if he wants to do broadcasting after, he's going to do a great job of it. There's a few guys in this league that I think would easily fit that bill, but Sergio definitely being one of them. But this guy has gone through a lot this year. He's played in 20 matches, but he's probably played the fewest minutes in 20 matches that you could ever expect from a leader of a team, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And yet he has 5 goal contributions, including 2 otherworldly goals, right? And he just does it. You don't expect a whole lot from him. Yeah. You do expect a lot from him because he's a talented player, but he doesn't jump off the page with unbelievable skill set. He's not the guy that a lot of people talk about as one of the top players in the league, but I think he needs to be in that conversation.
110%.
When we're talking the Kyle Becker-esque sort of players. You know what I mean? The guys who just do everything really, really well. They're not the super flashiest guys, but you need them on your team to have success. And I think, listen, I might be talking out of turn here, but in my opinion, had he played more consistently this season, and I know injuries, whatever, take that into account, but if he had played more consistently this season, Cavs would have already clinched a playoff spot. Yeah. And probably been fighting with Forge for first place.
I think that's what we like to see when those teams are cooking every year, right? That's always a wicked battle at the top.
Absolutely. But do you agree with me that if he's more consistently in the starting lineup, playing 80 minutes a game or 90 minutes a game for those 20 matches that he played, this team's probably pushing first?
100%. Like I already said, 100%. On Friday night in particular, what a dynamic performance. Are you kidding me? What he did with the ball in the build-up to the Ali Musi goal was incredible. You don't expect it to be one of the most dynamic 10s in the league when he turns it on, when he has the opportunity to do that. He took this team on his back, is what he did on Friday night in a pivotal match that hurt some teams in a lot of ways. But yeah, he was absolutely incredible with the way he was able to link up and find his colleagues out there on the pitch. Just a brilliant way, the turn to find the pass, and then Elijah Adekubi he put everything on the line to try to save it from going in, but then Musi was there. But then also the freaking goal that he scored, an absolute banger, caught Vincenzini way off his line. I think I almost lost my voice. I went into the bathroom and anyways. Screamed into the stall. We all do that.
I don't want to know what you did in the bathroom. Continue.
But it was just, oh God, yeah, no, he had a day. He had a day and a half on Friday, and it was frustrating but cool to see. It was cool to see.
No, you know what? You as a fan of York, it can absolutely be a frustratingly cool thing to see, right?
Yeah, no,
because
off to no end.
You are also a true fan of the game.
Yes.
So you can be frustrated, but you also find it very entertaining to watch players have those kind of games. And we've seen it across the league. When some guys get going, they get going, right? Badibanga, when he gets going, it's hard not to be impressed with what he does, right? Camargo, Musi, Becker, Badibanga, half of the Ottawa super team, right? Those are the guys you go to watch play. Brian Wright for York. I'm trying to think
he was non-existent on Friday night because of freaking Cavs.
Yeah.
They couldn't get a single ball to him. The way that they played as a team was they shut everything down. They were so compact. York, kept pushing York out to the side. They were anytime York had possession of the football, move it down to the flanks, and they couldn't try to swing it in. Go for it. Go to swing it in. It's going to be scooped up. The clearances were off the charts from everywhere. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Brian Wright for his first game back, and this is what happens. He just didn't no service whatsoever. He couldn't because Cavs were Cavs.
Yep. And I mean it's also a lot more difficult when this guy was chasing a gold title and now he's not even there. So let's start talking York since we kind of have made that transition. This is a team heading in the opposite direction of Cavs. Still very much going to be involved in the playoffs. I want to make that very clear. They're 8 points clear of Pacific, 10 points clear of Vancouver in 6th. They're going to make the playoffs. But they're unraveling a little bit here. And I think it comes down to the attack. When this attack is not firing on all cylinders, everything falls apart. And Brian Wright was so hot for a very long time to start this season. It was leading the league in goals and goal contributions. So he was leading the league in goals and assists separately, right? But over halfway through the year.
Yeah.
Now Ruben Del Campo has the lead in assists. Demi Antogolu has the lead. Ruben has the lead in goals. Demi has the lead in assists. And
Sorry, was that another guy that was on TFC? Was that it? Sorry.
Yes.
He was.
He was.
He was indeed.
Right? What's crazy to me is that Brian, we talk about this. He's second in the league in goals right now. He's 9 goals this season. Right? And Ruben has 11. Ruben has had 50 shots and 22 on target. Brian has had only taken 31 shot attempts in 19 games.
Efficiency.
And 16 of them have been on target. So he's scored on 9 of his 16 shots on target.
Nick, I just have one question. I mean, how cold is ice? You know, I mean, what's colder than ice?
Right now, it's only Brian Wright because he's ice cold at the moment. He has not scored in his last few matches. And, like, we just talked about it. When these type of players are going, that's what draws people to the games. This team is not playing well, and we talked about it at the transfer when they got rid of Austin Ricci. Sorry, I was totally blanking on his name there. Right? That it was going to be hard to fill that chemistry that he had with Brian. Now we're seeing the ramifications of that move. And I understand they were bringing somebody in that they thought was going to fill that spot. But as good of a player as that person could be, chemistry is a big deal in footy. And anyone who's ever played the game, anyone who's ever watched the top level can see chemistry is such a big deal. And right now, it looks like York's attack is lacking that killer chemistry. Am I wrong in that? You watch every single York game.
Nick, we're cooked. I don't know what else to say in terms of.
I don't think I don't think they're cooked.
No,
I
not
think
for the
that
rest
there's
of this
an
year.
issue.
Not for the rest of this year. That's not. And we'll see how playoffs go. But just I don't know. I don't understand the Austin Ritchie move
Yes,
away.
we talked about that.
Right, and so we've already got on that. But it's just this 4-3-3 system that Benjamin Mora deployed on Friday night is not it, and it's just that it concerns me. I feel like we're cooked because we don't have flexibility. We don't have that same depth that Forge has. We don't have that same dynamism that you need to be a team that's going to do really, really well and make a long run into this playoffs. And so that's why I'm concerned. That's why I'm upset because we need to find effective ways of creating scoring opportunities, and that is not what we did. And we are. I don't know why he's sending Thomas Vincenzini that far up the pitch. That frustrated me to no end.
Okay, I wonder.
Friday night.
Okay, here's I'll give a counterpoint on that one. Was that Mora's tactic, or was that Vincenzini trying to play sweeper keeper? That's a debate. I'm not going to blame Mora on that because we don't know. So I'm going to push back on that one point. Sorry. Continue.
That's fair. That's fair. I got to know. That's what I mean. That's a question I have to ask because it made absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. But it's just, the injuries have hit us at the wrong time. Like, there's no Frank Stirring, and we missed him a lot. And I think that he was sort of a key piece in there because, again, the initial system that was deployed by Benjamin, it was like a 3-5-1-1 sort of thing going on there. When you have somebody who can provide that link, you can create opportunities. And yes, it's Mo at times, but I think Ricci was a big part of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the what is a solution? There needs to be a new solution because what was working in the honeymoon period when he first took over this position isn't working now. And it can't just be that, we're missing a couple of guys at the back, so it's affecting the form. So that means we're not playing as cohesive. You should be able to still create scoring opportunities.
Yes.
Because I don't think that the defense was too much of the issue on Friday night. I think
No, I think Leon and Higgins have been a fantastic duo at the back in that center back role. I think Niall Higgins has really stepped up this season.
Yeah.
Which is something that they desperately needed. Don't get me wrong, but I do think he's done a fantastic job of really cementing his spot as a starting center back in the CPL for a very young guy too. By the way,
yeah.
The big issue for me is that you're rotating that center mid so consistently, and Mo Babuli is not a winger, and you're playing him as a winger. He's an attacking mid. Let's be 100% honest. He is an attacking mid, and a damn good one in this league. But he can't be playing out on the wing. That's not where he has the most success.
100%.
So if you're gonna play that 4-3-3 system, okay, what you need to do is you need to basically do it as 4 across the back, 2 defensive mids with an attacking mid in front, 2 wingers, and a striker.
Little Martin Ashley system. The point that I was going to make quickly as well was just what really bothered me was that we don't have another number 9 to come off the bench in an effective manner. That was one of the big things that I noticed on Friday night as well. Because when Brian Wright comes off and you're bringing on the babyface assassin, and people may disagree with me here, he is not the number. He's not a number 9. I think he's a number 10. I think he can be your direct sub for Mo Babuli. But one thing that's really hurting us is that I think a 4-2-3-1 would be an interesting thing to also try out because that's just it. Mo's not a winger.
No.
And there's a lot of there's so much midfield depth in this side. It's not even funny. There's too many midfielders almost. You know what I mean? You can never say that. But
well,
100%,
no. You can absolutely say that because if you look at the roster outside of Jimenez and Shola, every other player on that bench is either a midfielder or a winger.
Yeah.
And even then, most of them are just midfielders. Every other player outside of the backup keeper and Shola, who you think is more of an attacking mid than a striker. Right, if we're talking, I'm converting numbers to positional names because some people don't all know the numbers, so that's why I try to do that. That means 6 players are, well, I guess they brought in Kembo Kibato. He's a defender. So 5 other players are midfielders out of 8 on your bench.
There's no depth.
That's a concern to me.
Yeah.
That's a concern to me.
It's a concern, and the last 2 performances that we had, like as you sort of alluded to, and it was like Forge is that close to clinching the title. The CPL shield is theirs. York's completely.
3 weeks ago, we were having a conversation where York was in contention, and it was going to come down to the 401 Derby, or the QEW Derby, whatever you want to call it, the 905 Derby. How many? There's so many.
There
names.
You go. You got it. You nailed it. 3 times.
There's so many names, man.
It's too many.
You could name them all. Right? It was coming down to the Southern Ontario Derby for the championship. Like, that's where we were at, with Ottawa being third. Like, it was an all Ontario battle for the top of the CPL, and now York's not even in conversation. They might have to play that first playoff game.
That's gonna be an interesting thing to see, right?
Right? Like, how disappointing would that be after the start to the season they had?
Yeah, I mean, to the Mora era. After the start to the Mora era, 100%. Yeah, and
but even the start to the season, once everyone was healthy, they started figuring things out, and then Mora came in and it took off.
Yeah.
And yeah, the new coach bump is over.
Yeah, no, that's
they didn't ride it like St. Louis did to the Stanley Cup championship. You know what I mean? Like, they got half a season out of it, and that's it. So now they really got to log it down and figure it out.
No, I need him to prove that he's got some other ideas up his sleeve, because this 4-3-3 thing's not working. He better realize that fast, because Forge is coming on Saturday. Actually, we're going to Forge. York's going to Hamilton.
Yes, so the Forge players are coming after York. So
exactly.
Let's move on to the Canadian Championship game that is going to take place tomorrow. I know we can talk about the rest of the CPL, but we'll do that next week. Can Champ tomorrow. Vancouver, TFC, final, 1 game. Winner take all at BC Place. Big time. It's a big deal.
The winner takes it all.
It's been an interesting year in the Canadian Championship because Vancouver played Cavs, which was a very tough game. Ended up going to penalties. Then they played Pacific, who was playing well or wasn't really playing well at the time, but was playing well in the tournament. And now they're in the final. TFC, on the other hand, may have had the easiest route of any team to get to the Canadian Championship final that I've ever seen, and still almost tripped up. Sorry, let me correct that. Easiest route of any MLS side we've ever seen in the Canadian Championship. Because they played Simcoe County, who they beat the living crap out of in the first round 5-0 on aggregate. And then they followed that up by beating the CS Saint Laurent 11-1 on aggregate because that was just close. And then they almost lost to Forge. Like, this TFC team is... We talked about it earlier. They're not doing well. They're not figuring things out. Vancouver is a good team. If I'm capping this game from a betting perspective, Vancouver has to be a favorite by 1.5 goals, almost. The way they're playing, the way they're scoring, the way TFC can't score, right? Yeah. And yet, because it's a final, the actual betting line is going to be a lot closer. Yeah. Just because that's how it is, right? What do you think of this match heading into it?
It's a three-peat coming to Whitecaps. So you think
it's three-peat guaranteed?
Going back to Vancouver. 100%, no questions
What do you mean
asked.
going back to Vancouver? The game's in BC place. It doesn't have to go very far.
The trophy is going to stay there.
It's
going to stay. Yeah, no, I think that they've consistently been able to put out some good performances as of late. I know that, again, there were some rotational things that happened, which is why we got the result we did against the LA Galaxy. But this is just a team that knows how to play football together. This is a team that has depth, like Ryan Gold, Brian White.
Brian White.
Yeah. It's too close. I'm always thinking about York. I'm sorry, but no, yeah. Like Sam Adekubi's back. This is a great football team. This is a good football team.
Ali
Ahmed, like you name everybody in the squad. If you want to go tit for tat, they're just miles ahead of Toronto FC.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is a better side, and they should win this game, and they should three-peat. And Vanni Sartini will get another trophy.
Another tattoo?
Potentially. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a good question. Is this a make or break game for John Herdman with the investigation looming overhead?
Oh, wow. That's a great question.
I know I'm coming kind of over the top here on this one because that was not part of our pre-show conversation. But I'm going to change it up. Is this a make or break game for John Herdman with this TFC side, or are we saying that this TFC side is not built yet?
I think it's a really unfair thing to say, but also that being said, there's a very cutthroat nature to the way that coaching works in Europe, and as a fan of also Palermo, that they'll fire a coach on any given weekend. So with respect to that, I'd be excited to see it if that's the case. So, I think there's a potentiality. There's a conversation to be had that says if Herdman is not able to pick up silverware, and with this investigation looming, and with the fact that he hasn't shown that he's been able to come up with solid ways of developing structures for these players to succeed. Yeah. I think that there's a chance that this could be make or break for him.
Okay, because you said there's a chance, it's clearly not, but I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think this is important for him. I think if he can't start showing that he can win consistently with this side, his stay here won't be very long, especially with the investigation looming overhead and depending on how long that suspension is. If there's a suspension, which there should be, but again, that's probably going to be an off-season conversation we can have. I don't see a way TFC wins this unless Bernadeschi takes over the game.
That's tough, 100%.
Right, and that's a big ask for him.
It's a long shot against. I just finished saying how locked down the Whitecaps defense was against Houston last Wednesday, and they have been, and they continue to be. I cannot see. I hope Herdman's got something up his sleeve.
He does.
That is going to be able to.
Sorry, did I say that out loud?
I don't know. Last quick. I'm not going to make it rant. Sorry. Last thing that I'm just going to say. TFC's pissed me off because it feels like they just go for the names, right? We bring in Bob Bradley. Ooh, he's done some cool things. We bring in John Herdman. has he really convinced like that he's been able to be that guy in the big situations?
No, and the thing is that fans of true footy fans, not the name fans, will say that John Herdman hasn't really impressed since his time even with the national team. Respectively. He's a great motivator, and he does a great job bringing teams together, which is absolutely a skill. But tactically, he's flawed, and he's been flawed at every step. And now we're seeing it at TFC, where national team is a little bit different because you only have so many games a year. It's a lot easier to hide tactical flaws. It's not easy to hide tactical flaws in the club game because you play every week, once, maybe twice a week. There's more games. There's more chances for you to get exposed, and he's been exposed tactically.
He doesn't have enough ideas. He's one of the
Bob
best.
Bradley, I will argue, was a better coach for TFC tactically, but the squad was worse.
That's real. I mean, he definitely played a system that fit into the guys that we had at the time in Insigne and Bernadeschi, right? Like he's playing a 4-3-3 that they had just spent the entire Euros playing with Mancini. Was it as dynamic as a 4-3-3? No, but again, he didn't have the guys at his disposal.
But I don't think he had the guys at his disposal.
Exactly.
So I think tactically, Bob Bradley was a better coach. Motivationally, 100% John Herdman is a better.
No, I think he's the best assistant coach that Canada Soccer has seen.
The thing is that he can be a head coach if he has a tactician at his side. Unfortunately, I just don't see that on the TFC.
He's using a drone to spy on the forge. That's how he was prepping for the semifinals of the Can Champ.
But my point being that I don't think they have that tactical guy on the coaching staff.
No.
And that's costing them problems.
Do they have the fitness guy? Because there's been too many injuries, too.
Well, is that fitness or is that the trainers? That's different. Fitness is running and cardio. Got to be careful with your words, man.
As somebody who grew up playing a lot of academy football, I totally know these things.
No, fitness is a very different thing. People use that word too liberally nowadays.
This is true.
All right. Your favorite time of the week, I'm going to just let you go with this, buddy. Scouting report for the Canadians in and around the world.
So, we're going to start with the Canadians men's national team.
Let's hit it.
In the Champions League. So, Alphonso Davies played 90 minutes in Bayern's 9-2 win over Dinamo Zagreb.
Nice close game.
And then, it was a really, really tightly contested affair.
Was it like 2-1 at one point, too?
I think that they went up. If I correct me wrong, I think they went up first. I was in my history lecture when this was happening, and the person that was sitting next to me was like, "Did you just see that?" And I was like, "So then we had to stream the
They
game."
just beat the living crap out of them in the second half.
And
Anyways,
Bayern
continue.
heard us
I'm
talking
sorry.
schmack. You're interrupting my segment, Nick.
I'm sorry. Jonathan David about the 9-2 game.
Jonathan David went 64 minutes and a little 2-0 loss to Sporting. It was quite sad, but.
Boo.
He scored a goal on a pen against Strasbourg in the league.
Yes, he did.
That was nice. So you're always happy when you can see that. And then the WSL kicked off. So there was exciting European action on the women's side for the Canadian women's national team. Gilles played 90 minutes against Fleury Mergois, and she scored a goal because she's the greatest. She's the greatest defender in women's sport.
That's Ligue 1 Féminin, not WSL. Yes.
Sorry, you're right. It's bad build-up.
You said WSL. You meant women's leagues in Europe. I got you. That's what I'm here for.
And then to go over to the WSL, Khadijah Buchanan and Ashley Lawrence both played 90 minutes in a 1-0 victory for Chelsea over Adriana Leon and Sabrina D'Angelo's Aston Villa, which was an exciting one in that we had Leon come off the bench in the 66th. And then we almost had the opportunity for a keeper goal because Sabrina D'Angelo was called up into the box for a corner at the end. She got close to it, but it didn't turn into anything. But boy, would I have loved to have seen it.
You were really hoping for that just for the scouting report?
I was it has to happen. I need it. And then other exciting news. Livy Smith made her Liverpool debut in the WSL, and she went 70 minutes in a draw against Deanne Rose's Leicester City. Deanne Rose came off the bench as well. And then more big ones on the Canadian men's national team side. Nico Seeger picked up an assist. David Chouanier picked up his first goal for Grasshopper. So a lot of exciting things happening there. Nice to see those guys doing well in Europe. And then back quickly in North America. Back to North America. In exciting news, Michelle Prince bagged their first goal for Kansas City and their 3-0 win over the Washington Spirit. And more exciting striker news for the Canadian women's national team because Evelyn Villain also scored 2 goals for Roma. So it's nice to see that we have our strikers scoring in the league. So hopefully that can be taken to the national team form. And listen, throw Sabrina D'Angelo up at the 9. I think they keep saying that Villain can only come off the bench. I think that's cap. I think you start her. Sabrina D'Angelo isn't our starting goalkeeper, but she could be that solid sub for striker. Hot takes. Josh Palermo. That was your supporter scouting report.
And I want to throw one more in because you missed it somehow.
Oh.
Simi Awujo also made her debut for United.
She
off
did.
the bench in the 77th minute. So 13-minute little showcase there for Awujo on that stage, as did Shelina Zadorsky. She came in the 60th. So, yeah, good times in the WSL for Canadians, and we love to see it.
Yes.
We love to see it. Josh, is there anything you want to add before we head out, my friend? It's been a long show, and we probably should get out of here soon. But I figured I'd give you the con, my friend, as they say on Star Trek.
That is all.
That is all. Well, there you go, folks. Make sure you follow us on all of social media. We will try to do better on our social media accounts. That is our goal. We are going to get better at it at some point. One way or another, we will figure it out. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you are watching on YouTube right now on the Garage Door Sports Network, or just subscribe if you're watching after. Whatever you want to do. Listen to us on your favorite podcatcher as well. You can find us from the supporters section on all your favorite podcast networks. We will be back in 2 weeks' time. We will have next week off. Until then, he's Josh Palermo. I'm Nick McVicker. We'll see you next time.